unfortunately, we don't have anyone with us from Westport tonight, but two thoughts about Westport, and one of the reasons we don't is because of sickness, but they're talking before, we're aware of 3 pastoral couples from Westport that are struggling with significant health issues at the moment, and one of them, it's been one thing after another for almost 2 years, and really pray for the health and well-being of those ministers. And the second was around the floods, and last time we prayed regarding the floods, but there's still quite a few people who are traumatized by it. A lot of people who are still not back in their houses, and of course, while the government's approved funding for the flood, will take a while for that to get built, and so at the moment, every time there's a significant weather event, some of those people are feeling re-traumatized after those things. So both praying for them spiritually and emotionally, but also that the flood might get built sooner rather than later. That there'd be some significant good progress on that. Yeah, and I'll pass over to Tim Mora, who's Minister of Cobden Anglican and also a District Councillor. Tim's had a long day around the council table today in Greymouth.
I didn't realise I had to unmute myself. I thought Grace was going to do that. Hey, thank you, Sam, for that introduction. And I want to thank you guys too for your prayers. And I want to share something from the last time we gathered to pray for the West Coast. And in particular, we were praying in Greymouth for the issue of gangs. And since that time, the police have actually managed to have a major crackdown on one of the more high-profile gangs that has been in the area. And quite a number of those are away in prison, and the power of that particular gang has been broken up. So, your prayers have been effective, and I want to give thanks for your praying for Greymouth in the area around the gangs that we hear. There are still other gangs, and they're kind of like underneath a little bit more, not so high profile, but it was good to see one of them have its power broken by the police. So thank you for your prayers for that. In terms of prayer for Greymouth itself, I just want to give thanks. I think that's the first thing I want to say. If you could give thanks in your prayers for church unity in Greymouth. It's been here for a very long time. It began back in the 1950s when there were an Anglican clergyman and a Catholic Monsignor who were very good friends. And in that time, there was a lot of people would walk down opposite sides of the street. There was no intermarriage between Catholic and Protestant and so on. But they were such good friends that when the Catholic Monsignor died, Keith Aubrey, the canon, Anglican canon, stood on the side of the street in his robes as the funeral cortege went past. And everyone saw that. And it kind of like broke something in our community in terms of the division between different denominations. And we've really experienced for a number of decades now a real strong sense of unity amongst our pastors and clergy and church leaders. So something to give thanks for, and it manifests today in combined men's breakfasts, obviously our ministers' gatherings, collaboration, combined events that we do, and more recently over the last couple of years with region-wide gatherings of as many as possible of pastors and clergy from up and down the whole West Coast. We've been doing that for 3 years now and got another one coming up in October. So give thanks for church unity in Greymouth and on the wider coast. In terms of prayer, I know it says in Timothy that we should be praying for leadership, civic leadership, that we might live quiet and peaceable lives and able to share the gospel in a good environment. I'd like to ask for prayer for our local council. It's been working through a very long restructure that has been very disruptive. When it's finally complete, it will result in hopefully really good results for all. And there are a number of Christians besides myself, our CE and another councillor and myself. So there's 3 Christians on that council. So that's a reasonable number actually. So just pray that it will achieve the results aspired for as we come out of been a very long restructure. So that's Greymouth for you, and I'll hand back to Sam for Hokitika.
Thanks, Tim. Like Tim, when I was reflecting on points to give thanks for, I was thinking about the churches working together. Hokitika doesn't have the same history that Greymouth does. I think the Ministers Association here broke up 20 years ago over some significant differences, and the churches work together much better now, and give thanks to the Lord for that, and but it's still got a way to go as to how that works practically in a number of areas. In terms of prayer, I wanted to pray. We've got an up and coming a music festival in January, and it's a combined churches event, the Living Waters Music Festival, and it is the musicians who are coming to play at it all come from one form or another of broken or traumatic background, and the primary attraction is around music, but the primary focus of it is for them to share their testimonies. And so praying for that, it being the committee that's organised, it's the first time they've organised anything like this. So pray for wisdom for them, but also pray that God might use it effectively in our community and for those who come to it. Just looking at my points. And then shifting to the regional thinking about the West Coast as a region, Tim's talked a little bit about the gangs, and I think it would be good to give thanks for what has happened in that space, but just to hold it in prayer before the Lord again, that the police continue to have open doors and open intelligence, and that area of gangs and drug use in particular would be broken. And then Tim also mentioned about our next West Coast wide clergy gathering is happening in October down here in Hokitika, so it would be good to hold that up in prayer before the Lord, both for people to be free to be able to come, but also for the Lord to work and have his way in that gathering. We're a bit earlier than 25 past, Grace, but that's us.
That's great. I was just listening and thinking of a couple of questions. Tim, the shed, the whole youth outreach and where youth are at in Greymouth, could you share a little bit on that, please?
Yeah, so this is a special year for us because we're actually celebrating 25 years of running the shed, and it's been a long-term community-based outreach ministry to the young people of Greymouth. And yeah, the youth scene has changed a lot. Go back 20 years and Christian churches ran the majority of the youth ministry in this country. It's very different now. We're only about a quarter of young people in youth groups across the country as used to be back then 20 odd years ago. There are about 800 or 900 young people in the Grey District in the teenage years and we probably have about 120 of them connected with the shed. They don't all come every night. We have normally about 40 to 50. And you have some that come every week and others that come every 2 or 3 or even just once a term sort of thing. Yeah. There's a lot of challenges facing young people today. I mean, the biggest issues are, confusion around, LGBTQI stuff and transgender and those sort of issues. We have a number of kids who come to our community program who are in that space. We have kids across, and it seems to be more of these too, across the autism spectrum with Asperger's and so on. So it's quite a challenging space to be in. Bullying is rampant still. I remember asking a couple of weeks ago about a month ago now, we were addressing the issue of bullying, and I just asked the question, I think, young people who were there, how many of you have been bullied? And 2/3 of them put up their hand, and while some of them were kids with difference, which is what attracts bullies, with issues like autism, but a lot of them weren't. And I was quite surprised how many were affected by it. So there's a lot of pressure on our young people today, and there is, with all the economic stuff that's going on, there's a sense of, is there any hope for the future? In my generation, we look forward to the future with hope. It was going to be a good future, but these days, I think some of them struggle to do that. Yeah. So there's a lot going on, and for me, the Shed Ministry in Greymouth is a really important ministry in terms of touching. We've had over our 25 years around about 1,100 kids or young people come through our program. And yeah, so it's a real celebration. Some of the pastors, and one's a lecturer at a theological college, and all sorts of things. And so it's exciting to see that and to celebrate 25 years. Yeah. So yeah, keep praying for that ministry here in Greymouth as well. I'd appreciate that.